Okay, let's move on to the story that we are tackling today. Reports today indicate that Infosys may be welcoming back some of its employees to the offices. Remember, the IT bellwether has had nearly 99% of its employees working from home for the duration of the pandemic, a little over 18 months now. So how exactly are offices planning to bring people back? Is this going to happen, say, by September, when more and more employees are vaccinated? Is it as simple as just ensuring that everyone's vaccinated and bringing them back in? Because remember, there's the fear of a third wave, variants, etc. Also, the little matter of a new system of way of working which has been created over the last year and a half. Work from home has its ups, but it has, its downs, but it has its ups as well. So how is all of this going to pan out? Is India ready to go back to office? To speak on this, I'm joined now by Manish Sabharwal, co-founder of Teamlease Services. Anandorup Ghosh, partner Deloitte India, is joining us on the show this evening. And I'm also speaking with Anshuman Magazine, chairman and CEO of CBRE India. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us on the show. Manish, you've always, from day one, from the beginning of this pandemic and our coverage, been a proponent of how work from home cannot last and people will come back to office. Do you think that that time is near?
I think so. I think that, it's not going to be a bulb that goes on. It's going to be a gentle sunrise, obviously, because of different sort of levels of vaccination, because of different sort of fears based on how old you are. So I think there's going to be a tearing, but yes, it's time to get back to work. We all have been making more withdrawals than deposits into social capital. And, so all the tasky stuff which has a right answer is getting done, but the stuff which needs discussion, which needs creativity has been piling up. So I think, yes, it's time to get back.
What's the sense you're getting, Manish, from companies? Are they preparing to bring back employees into office, and what will that entail?
I mean, I think it's not just employers. I think, working from home is living at work. I mean, there are no partitions, there are no pauses, not everybody has a separate room they can work from. Not everybody has bandwidth at home. So I think that the work from home is masked a lot of diversity of motivations, diversity of infrastructure. So I think companies are getting ready. Obviously, in the first stage, they're giving the choice to people. They're obviously encouraging people to get vaccinated before they go back. They're obviously rearranging offices to have some social distancing to start with. And so it's not going to be a bulb that goes on. It'll be a gentle sunrise, but companies are ready for it. And I think many employees are too.
Anandorup, what is the kind of trend that you are seeing? Does it make sense for businesses to bring employees back into office, pay those rents again, have them in their space? Or are some companies, in some verticals at least, realizing that work from home turned out to be quite economical for them?
I want to take a step back, and when you talk about work from home, it's interesting because all of this discussion on work from home pertains to actually a very small percentage of the entire population that works in the country. People who work in manufacturing sites, people who work in places that need to deliver stuff, retail, etc., they have been going to work every single day for the last 1.5 years. So the work from home phenomenon is only for the people who are office goers, whose jobs can be done on a desktop. That's basically the people who have started working from home. And for this population, and like Manish said, I think it's absolutely true that for this population, there's a wide variance, right? There is a group of individuals who have comfort, like many of us do, of being able to work with a laptop and a separate room and voice, etc., etc. But for those that don't, productivity has definitely suffered, and not because people don't want to work, it's because the infrastructure does not allow them to. If you realize also a large percentage of our population is paid less than 5 lakhs. When you are paid less than 5 lakhs, it's not like you can afford a lot of facilities at home to be able to effectively work from home. So to that extent, I think organizations also realize, I think the big change, if you ask me, is not about work from home, work from office, etc. The big change is, I think, fundamental acceptance that it is okay to have people work from home from time to time. But I think if you ask any organization, the intent is eventually to get people back into office, to get the, like again, putting Manish, to get the creative juices flowing, to get the collaboration started. And that's eventually the whole point of having an office to begin.
Anshuman, are you seeing that intent translate into action? We know that commercial real estate did take a hit over the last year and a half. Is that trend reversing in any way, or are companies who decided to downsize staying that way?
Tamanna, you mentioned, is it simple? Actually, it's not simple at all. It is actually becoming a bit challenging to get employees back to work. So one end, we talk about mental health issues. We don't have enough space.
I've lost Anshuman's line, but I'm going to get back to him. Some of the perils of working from remote location is, this is a prime example of it, the dependence on technology at that time, which will dictate whether your meeting goes through or not. We'll try and get Anshuman back as we connect him remotely. But, Manish, case in point, any work is so dependent on that internet connection, on power being in place and all of those factors. Having said that, will there be a group of employees who have now discovered that they can multitask and do so much more while working from home, who may not be so keen to come back into office?
Well, I think, as Anandorup said, I mean, what will stay back with us after COVID is flexibility. There will be an ability on 1 or 2 days a week to work from home. The challenge is coordination, right? So you want everybody to be in the office on the same day. So you can't let that 1 or 2 days be chosen by employees. So I think there are algorithms being devised by companies on which days everybody will be in office, what time will be the meetings and stuff like that. But I think that work is something we do. It's not, we used to say that work is something we do. It's not a place that we go. And we were all sort of excited about, but there are benefits to coming together. An argument, we've had this conversation, an argument against offices is an argument against cities, right? New York's GDP is the same as Russia, with 1.01% of the population and land. So I think there are benefits to coming together. There will be flexibility, and I think that flexibility will bring labor market outsiders into the labor force. I think this is India's women's labor force participation has been an embarrassment, a little above 25%. I think flexibility, not work from home, will raise the labor force participation. I think there will be some possibilities as the digital divide comes of people working from small towns for big companies. So I think I'm not saying that we will go back to pre-COVID life. I think the randomized control trial that we ran because of COVID would never have given us the confidence for flexibility. But I think most employers have concluded that even the employees feel that productivity may be higher, infrastructure is better, and flexibility is what everybody is asking for.
Mr. Ghosh, the big productivity question is key over here. A lot of studies out there on whether productivity has increased or not. Perhaps employers may feel that productivity has gone down, but you speak to employees and they think that productivity has definitely gone up because they feel like they're on the clock all the time, since there's no real physical separation between work and home. Do you think that will be the big gauge? The fact that your staff is accessible at all times because they're working remotely is also a big plus point.
Yeah, it's a plus point for the employer, not necessarily for the employer. On the productivity point, I think the unfortunate fact we have to understand is that this is too short a time period to take a point of view on productivity. First of all, in a productivity ratio, there's a numerator, which is the output, denominator, which is the number of hours put in, number of people, etc. The numerator, which is the output, is something that has gone through a sine curve for the last couple of quarters. was great for a period, it slumped, went up, slumped again, and so on. So when you have this kind of a behavior, you can't really predict, you can't really compute productivity over a time series to say that it has gone up or gone down. That's one. The second thing is that if you take productivity purely as have tasks been completed, I think their productivity hasn't necessarily suffered as significant. I think if you look at it broadly, companies have filed their end of year statement accounts have been closed. Most companies have completed all their end of year processes in time. Companies that support other client organizations in running their processes have been doing that reasonably well. There have been no client escalations per se that Indian companies have seen, etc. So I think at a broad level, if you just take it purely as are people putting in the time and getting the output done, to that extent, it's happening. There will obviously be ups and downs in that. There will be variances depending on time of year, location, etc., etc. But at a broad level, it's not suffered significantly. But I think what has suffered fundamentally is, and I think...
let me...
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, your line is not very clear, so I'll come back to you. But I've also got Anshuman back with me. Anshuman, you were making the point about how it's not going to be that simple to go back to a pre-COVID working situation. Are you seeing some of those decisions reflecting in how companies are deciding about their real estate space?
To some extent. See, the fact also is these are early days. There are a lot of trends being talked about, hub and spoke model, offices being close to workplace, and most people working at home. I think it's very early to really gauge what's really going to happen. But in the short term, certainly most of the corporates are now deciding what do they need to do on their office space. But the larger, in India, if you look at it, if you go to Bangalore and others, the bigger occupiers are IT companies or offshoring companies, and they have large footprints. So I don't think it's easy for them to maneuver so much. And the whole infrastructure is set up where young people come there, they get their lunch, dinner, coffee, they meet other young people, and the whole infrastructure of IT is there. So I don't think it'll be easy for them to just, move to working from home. And like someone else mentioned earlier, that the people are getting paid. One second is that we have got one of the youngest workforces in the world, and they would want to come back to the office. But it will be a struggle. There is no question that after post-COVID, there'll be more people working out of home than they have worked before. But eventually, we do expect majority to come back to the office, because the way, especially in India, forget about other countries, because of young workforce, because of our infrastructure, because of small homes, joint families, many reasons. And I would say the biggest thing is we can talk about productivity. And I agree, productivity and number of hours are not mostly sometimes related. And eventually I do expect people to come back, but it will take longer than we think. So it's not that today everybody is concerned about the health and safety of the employees. The employees themselves are a bit paranoid to coming back to the office. But the hope I have, the silver lining is that more people are getting vaccinated, that the offices, at least in the large corporations, they're making sure the offices are sanitized, there's social distancing. So everybody is aware. The awareness is huge. But in spite of that, it will be a slow process for people to come back to the office.
There's so many questions that have to be tackled. Most large offices have central air conditioning systems, which is not the best bet for prevention of something like COVID-19. Will people consistently keep their masks on? Will there be a mechanism to report and detect if there are symptoms? So there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered before everyone goes trooping back to office. Yes, point taken. This is still a very small part of the population we're speaking about who first had the luxury to work out of their homes, but then maybe it's time for them to prepare to go back to office as well. Thank you to all of you for joining us on that first discussion. We'll take a very short break. On the other side, we're talking about invoking promoter guarantees. A recent Supreme Court order has given impetus to creditors to go after promoters who've given personal guarantees, even if their companies are undergoing the resolution process under IBC. Does this help banks recover their money, or does it have a chilling effect on the credit culture. That discussion coming up after this break.